Okay, I don't know how to do that dance. I don't know if anybody else does. But I'm so excited to be here this evening and welcome all of you to the CTF Summit. My name, as was stated, is Liz Rodbell. I'm Vice Chair of the Children's Tumor Foundation, but more importantly, I'm an NF mom. And I know what it means to be a part of this community. It has made such a difference for my daughter and for my husband and I, who's here with me tonight, and our family, to have a sense of belonging, to know that there's a goal, that we are going to end this disease together, and to be a part of this mission. In 2022, the board of directors got together with the leadership of the foundation, and we really worked on an updated strategic plan with a focus over the next 5 years to really, really end NF. That is the goal. We focused on you as patients, and we focused on our mission to move with speed and agility to end this disease. And honestly, I've never been more proud of the work that we are doing to make that happen, but we cannot in any way believe we can't do it with all of you and gathering together. And I don't know, how many people have been to a summit before? Okay, got a lot of hands up, great. Yes, I know you have, Annette, thank you for doing that. That really wasn't what I was looking for. But what I have learned through meeting with other families, the researchers, the clinicians, and really connecting with others, and I was talking to a gal, I don't know if Jean minds me mentioning her name, from Boston. It's the first time she's here. Hey Jean, there you are, out with my card because we were both clubs. And it's first time here. There is so much to learn and to gain from being together. So really, there's so many volunteers, researchers, clinicians, patient advocates, and friends and supporters, and the board here to support you, the patients and the families that have come here to the summit. So thank you for being here. We're here, whether you've come to learn about education, empowerment, networking like I talked about, or a way to connect with others on a similar journey. I hope you leave with a renewed understanding and a refreshed motivation to do what? To end NF. I'd also like to thank this year's sponsors for the NF Summit. Our presenting sponsor, Alexion AstraZeneca Rare Disease, SpringWorks Therapeutics, Recursion, Colbeck, Healx, NF Flexion Therapeutics, and our patient scholarship sponsor, Be the Difference. We truly appreciate your partnership and support. Yes. Couldn't do it without all of you. Now I'd like to introduce a dear friend of mine, Matt Hay. I'm going to just read a few comments about this wonderful gentleman. He is the U.S. Director of Advocacy at Alexion AstraZeneca Rare Disease. His role is to ensure the patient's voice is heard and when and where decisions are being made. Matt has a long history as a patient advocate helping rare disease communities find and use their voice across the medical life cycle. His recently released memoir, Soundtrack of a Silence, Love, Loss, and a Playlist for Life, is getting rave reviews. We all must get it. Please help me welcome Matt to the stage. Thank you.
They told me I had 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, have you met me? You're going to give me a microphone and a stage in 2 minutes? I only have 3 things that I want to share with you today. The first is a thank you. The second is congrats. And the third is a mistake. So first, the thank you. There's a group of people in this room that know how many chairs are here. They know what font was used in every email sent. They know the square footage of the vendor table section. They know everything about everything happening this week, and they are the last people that are going to want credit, but I don't care. I'm going to ask the CTF staff to stand up and be recognized for a minute. On my flight here, I was watching a movie, and there was a line that I wrote down on my phone because I thought of all of you when I heard it. It said, "We don't want our work to be easy. We want it to matter." And so to those of you that were just standing up, we know your work isn't easy, but on behalf of everybody in this room and the thousands of people that couldn't be here tonight, your work matters. So thank you for that. Secondly, the congrats, and that's to all of you. Because how many times every one of us in this room has said, "I wish I could do more. I want to do more. What more can I do? What more, what more?" We all have a different NF journey, but it led us all to being in this room together tonight and this week. And congrats to you guys, because tonight, you guys are all doing more. So congratulations to you for taking the initiative to be here. This is what self-advocacy, this room is what advocacy looks like. I'm out of time, so I'll be fast on the third thing. And that's a mistake. And this was a mistake I made in 2011 when I came to my first NF Summit. I only talked to people the last night I was there. But the last night I was there, I met people that I now consider to be some of my closest friends in life. I love them. And I met them on Bourbon Street at the CTF Summit in 2011. And I don't want you to make the same mistake I did and wait until Saturday night to put yourself out there. My advice to you is engage. If at any point in the evening so far, when you were standing out in the lobby, you thought, "I'm the only one that doesn't know everybody," or, "Hey, I'm too intimidated to talk to that person," we all feel that way. Please don't let that stop you from talking with the person sitting next to you. They probably get it. And I think everybody in this room knows what I mean when we talk about NF and people that get it. And a lot of people in our lives don't. Friends, family, loved ones, they're wonderful people, but they don't get it. The people in this room get it. So engage with them. They know what it's like to doom scroll. They know what it's like to ask, "What more can I do?" So engage with them. Engage with the people at the tables. The vendors that are here are some of the world's leading experts in what they do. Engage with them. The clinicians, the physicians, the geneticists, the nurses, the folks that are here at presenting sessions are here because they want to end NF just as badly as we do. Engage with them. That's what they're here for. So I want to end with that because I really wish 15 years ago somebody would have said that to me. I think I could have met even more people even sooner than I now consider people in my life that I love. So thank you. I hope you guys have a wonderful 2 or 3 days here, and I look forward to talking to you out in the hall sometime.
Please welcome to the stage CTF President Annette Bakker.
This was awesome. Matt, fantastic. Hey guys, this is a movement. We are ending NF, and we're ending NF together. So thank you for being here tonight, because you are part of that movement. As all of you know, I don't have a family member with NF, but I have a massive family now with NF. And don't touch them. I love you all. And we will make this happen. We are committed, and we can be dangerous. So with that, I really would like to introduce Dr. Josh Denny. He is the head of the NIH All of Us program. And he is absolutely amazing because he's not only the director of All of Us, he is one of us. So Josh, your turn.
Well, thank you all. Thank you, Annette. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to speak with you tonight. It's really exciting to be here, and the energy that's in this room. Thank you for not only inviting me, but letting me come and being part of this community. And you'll hear my story as I go through tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and just get started here. I'm going to talk about precision medicine as a story and as a personal journey, and why I became a physician and why I got involved in research. And I'm going to start with this picture. So what you see here is my great-grandmother, my grandmother, my dad, and my uncle. And my dad is the one who's kind of got a little bit of a more mischievous look on his face, kind of looking at the camera there, while everyone else sort of looks more posed, perhaps. And that probably characterizes my dad. And he was a lot of fun, and a great leader for our family, and mentor and father for me. But what's not here are there are 4 people in this picture that aren't here. So they had 4 children die of cystic fibrosis at very young ages. And my dad, has very poignant memories of having those kids, some of those, his brothers and sisters, in his arms as they went to the hospital for the last time. And so I grew up with that story in our family narrative, and it really had an influence in me being the first doctor in our family, and wanting to be a researcher and not just a practicing physician. Cystic fibrosis is a rare recessive disease, so you have to get a copy from both your mother and father. There are over 2,000 known genetic mutations that cause cystic fibrosis. They have been cataloged well to know, in many cases, the severity of those mutations, and that it affects many organs. The lung is one of the most predominant one that you see, the pancreas, reproductive organs, sinuses, gut, other elements, and infection is one of the primary reasons that people often die from this disease. And when this was first described, you can see there, a little before 1940, the description was made, and my dad's siblings were around the 50s. The median survival was very low, but people kept working, and when I became, as a child, you can see dramatic improvements as we got better at treating the related phenotypes associated with the disease, ways to better clear the lungs and to counteract the pancreatic insufficiency so you could digest food, and better treat people in ways around that. And in I think it was 89, the gene was discovered. And you can see around my medical training there in 2000, and then you can see where I went to residency, you continued to get a marching up of the median survival of patients with cystic fibrosis. But we really changed things as we started to get targeted therapies. It started with ivacaftor, which was targeted at a very small percentage of the population, about 5% of the people with CF. They were able to stabilize the protein, and that led to a dramatic improvement in the ability of that protein channel to work better. And then now, to fast forward, we have 3 drug combinations that we can give to patients that actually dramatically improve lung function. And so this kind of curve you're seeing here, where the lung function actually got better, is really nothing. You never saw that with CF. What you tried to do is delay its degradation. And so these combinations of drugs have really been transformational with CF. And of course, my grandmother's still alive. She'll be 94 this year. I still get handwritten letters. She's very involved with the CF Foundation in Kentucky, and I'll get notes that she'll say, "I'm still looking for a cure. I'm still pressing in on that disease." And this is another photo where you can see that the lungs look a lot better after this targeted therapy than before. And so, this is just one story, and this is one I grew up with. And so what is precision medicine? Precision medicine is a better way of thinking about the multiplicity of things that affect our health journey and cause disease and affect how we live our life. The environment, lifestyle, habits, exposures, and our genetics. And they all interact. And there are so many other components to this. And so a simple way that we've kind of known for a long time is getting that precise antibiotic, or antifungal to the exact kind of bacteria or fungus you might have instead of just a generic one. But you think about molecular diseases, genetic diseases, knowing the deficit and knowing the gene and knowing how you might fix it, like the CF story, or like as we know with plexiform tumors now. As we have specific therapies that are really looking at the disease itself and what we know about it, and are targeted to knowing what not just the person who has the disease, but also the specific disease that a person has. Earlier breast and ovarian cancer screenings based on knowledge of cancer syndromes that someone may have, and maybe interventions for things like that, or cardiomyopathies based on understanding genetics. Alternative treatments for people who we can predict are not going to respond to a given medication. And sometimes this is a big deal. This could be an adverse reaction that could be deadly in 1 in a million. This could be a common thing to prevent a heart attack that we know is not going to work in 20% of the people, and we can predict that and do an alternate therapy. And we can also save money sometimes too, because we can give the older and more effective med to the 80% of the people that we know it's going to work in. What I'm going to talk about the All of Us research program is a foundation that built on the work that I was doing at Vanderbilt and many other people were doing across the world to a larger study that could really go to the national scale. This was launched towards the end of President Obama's terms, and it was called the Precision Medicine Initiative at the time. The idea is to enroll people across the United States, at least 1 million people, have longitudinal relationships with them, nurture these as partnerships with our participants. They're not just subjects, they're partners in the journey. And you all know this, of how we can make the difference in disease is really partnering with patient groups, partnering with, and our patients as advocates. And then take the data that people generously share and make it as broadly available as possible in as safe a way as we can do so to accelerate science and discovery, and then return value also to our participants. And then really think of this as an ecosystem of groups like CTF, like the CF Foundation, and so many other groups as part of an ecosystem with also researchers and funders to accelerate discovery in science. My former boss, Francis Collins, talked about this as the leader of the first Human Genome Project. This is kind of like, that gave us that initial way to map the genome. And this is not just about genetics, but that's a big part of it, and understanding what all those genetics mean. And I'll give you some things as we talk about this. We have a lot of core values we established. We wanted participation to be open to anyone in the United States. We really wanted to reflect the rich diversity of the United States. Most genetic studies have not been very inclusive and have underrepresented diverse populations, and we wanted to really capture diversity and reflect the diversity of the United States. I've talked about partnership. We want to be transparent. We want to give participants access to information. We'll talk more about that. We wanted the data to be broadly available to accelerate science and discovery as fast as we could to researchers in that safe way. And really make security and privacy, though, also paramount in what we do. And we want to just broadly be a catalyst for change in research. We want engaged, cooperative research that's trustworthy, that returns information, that honors our participants to be commonplace. We launched nationally in May of 2018. This just gives you a photos from some of the national launch sites we did across the country. Where we are now is we're approaching 800,000 participants that have consented to join the study. The vast majority of them, about 95%, also agree to share their electronic health records. In this country, as you probably know, it's hard to get your electronic health records and pull them together. So we're doing the work of doing that, but that's why there's a big difference between the 783,000 and the 432,000, as we're working on gathering those electronic health records, and those perform a really important part of the longitudinal care. And the participants can actually see a lot of that when they come through our interface. We have about 550,000 participants that have also donated biosamples. That includes DNA and some others. And you can see we have all 50 states and most US territories represented in this country. The places where we have more participants enrolled are places where we have a number, usually academic healthcare centers, other clinics. But we also have federally qualified health centers. The Veteran Affairs medical centers are part of this as well. And during COVID, we developed the ability to really go anywhere. So really anyone anywhere can now participate in the program. These are the kind of information we collect. So because we've focused on gathering electronic health records, which some of these electronic health records, just incredibly detailed, up to 40 years of information that we're getting in some of these cases to really look at the longitudinality of the health journey that people have. Because we capture that, we can also ask questions and use people's time to get information that's different than what they get in an electronic health record, and things about exposures and environment. And we release new surveys, generally about once a year. We have a brief in-person exam for most participants. You can see the measurements we get there. We collect biosamples in the blood. DNA is a key part of that, but also other ways that we can measure proteins and metabolites and things like that in the blood. Define biomarkers that may portend risk disease, things that we can do otherwise with that, and even diagnose things earlier, diagnose cancers earlier, looking at cell-free DNA that circulates, things like that are also part of the program. We can send saliva kits anywhere, so you can participate from home. And then wearable data. We have about we're approaching 100,000 people that have either contributed things like Fitbit data or Apple Watch data, things like that in the program as well, which is a lot of people have based discoveries on. I mentioned that we want to return value to participants. I'll go into some more detail of what that looks like in a few slides. But it's also things like the survey data, results from studies that we're finding, and a lot of other components to the program. One of the biggest things we heard from participants, and we did, before we did anything, we did kind of like focus groups in 17 cities with diverse participants and asked them different things, one of which was in different cities asking things about rare disease and what would you like? And across really all populations, people said, knowing things about genetics would be some of this kind of information that I would find the most valuable in the program. So we returned two types of health-related genetic information. One is hereditary disease risk, and the other is medicine in your DNA. So the term pharmacogenetics is something we use a lot in prior research that I did, which is how the medication, could be, its efficacy or side effects could be predicted by your genetics. And we have prescribing guidelines around 50 different medicines that are pretty common. About those 59 genes, you can see the list there and cover some like common, none of them are common, but breast and ovarian cancer syndromes, a number of heart conditions. All these conditions here are things that you can do something about if you have a genetic variant there. And you can see we are currently returning NF2 genetic results as well on that list. These lists are both things that we work with the FDA on, what we return, and so it's a conversation. There actually are already stories of things that people are making discoveries on all of us that we can use as evidence to talk about what we want to return next as this list can grow over time. And this just gives you a sense of what some of these disease reports and conditions look like. So that's an example screenshot from someone that would have a hypothetical patient in this case, a BRCA1 mutation, which puts you at risk of breast and ovarian cancer. The medicine in your DNA one there is a part there. We are the largest return effort I know of this kind. We're offering this kind of result to a couple thousand people every week. And what we find is about half say they want this result back. Not everyone wants the result back, and that's fine. And we support this with genetic counselors as well. And we have genetic counselors that are native English and Spanish speakers. We have support for 200 other languages in that process. We have so far returned results to right around 100,000 people if you look at both of these different categories. And for the hereditary disease risk, about 3% of people have a life-changing result from that, where there's something that they could do differently if they knew that result. Most of the people don't know of the risk. In this room, you do, probably, but we're finding most of our participants don't. And the same you can see with genetics for drug response, about 90% have an actionable result if they're exposed to the medication. And it looks like about 20% of the people in their lifetime will be exposed to one of those medications. We also provide, kind of for more fun, genetic ancestry and traits, what kind of earwax you have, whether you can taste cilantro, stuff like that, just for fun. And it's interesting, more people actually look at that information than they look at the health stuff. So it's quite engaging. And so now I'm going to talk about the research discovery piece of this. So we have a public tier that anyone can kind of come to, and you could actually go do this. You can even look at some of the stuff on your smartphone if you wanted to. And you can look at basic disease counts. You can look at how many people are on a certain medication, things like that. And the idea is to let researchers get a sense of, hey, can I do my study in all of us? Are there enough people? And it also allows participants, we find, to say, gosh, how many people like me might be in this data set? And you can also see all the research studies that are being done and the papers that are getting published. And then we have our researcher workbench for approved researchers to come in and do the analysis in our platform. And we have 2 tiers of that. And so our model here changes the traditional paradigm. So the traditional paradigm, and the way I did a lot of research, was, I would go apply to get access. It could take a year to go through all the pieces of that access. And then I would go download the data. And then, I had a pretty secure compute environment. I trusted it, I tested it, but not everyone necessarily does. And it can take a long time to get through those steps of process. And you have to have the necessary compute infrastructure. Right now, we estimate it would take about 6 months to a year to download our genetic data. So that's not very feasible. You have to also have a huge compute infrastructure. We moved to a cloud-based model where people come to our data. We can monitor the security of it. We can audit anything anyone does. And it means anyone can have the same compute infrastructure. We can provide a really powerful compute infrastructure. So someone at a less resourced institution can come and do work, just like someone at a really well-resourced institution. And it makes it a lot easier for someone to come in with grants and things like that, or without that funding to do work on different conditions or rare diseases where there may not be maybe necessarily as much funding as we would like available. This is the data that we currently have available. And so it lags between, as we curate the data and pull it together, what we release to researchers is behind, what our participants have donated, because it takes time to pull it all together. Our current data set is one of the largest genome sequence data sets in the world, and by far the most diverse. We have nearly 250,000 whole genome sequences in that data set. You can see we have a bunch of different kinds of other things there. Even that number of 15,000 is a really large Fitbit data set to look at things like exercise and activity and intersections with common disease. What's really exciting here to me is we have observed already. Now let me just set this. You have 3 billion genotypes in your DNA, roughly, a little bit more. And we've observed genetic variation at 1 billion of those locations in our program. So 1/3 of the entire genome we've seen variation at now. And of those, we've seen 275 million variants that have never been seen before. And most all those variants, even when I've said these variants may have been seen before, there's no connection to those to anything about health impact. They've just seen it somewhere. We actually have the ability to start asking, do those variants matter? And what is their impact? And to start entangling some of those kinds of things. This just shows where we compare to the rest of all the genetic studies that have been done worldwide. So the gray bars are all the other genetic studies. And these aren't all sequencing studies. A lot of them don't look at all 3 billion base pairs. But 95% of those are being done on people who are of European genetic ancestry or self-identified as white. And so you can see we have a much more diverse population here, which is part of the reason why we're seeing so much genetic variation. That really matters because there are variants out there that people say are clinically significant and cause a disease because we've only seen it as sequenced in one population and we haven't sequenced a diverse population. So that means there are variants that are incorrectly called as pathogenic or benign because we don't have a diverse enough sequenced population. And we're helping to change that. And let me tell you about like another study that just shows how I think we are able to accelerate science. I think this impacts everyone in this room. It impacts me and certainly I think my son. And so this analysis was one I did with a team in 2011 looking at hypothyroidism. It's a common disease. First time we looked at this condition, and it took about 40 people to do it, 2.5 years. I had a compute infrastructure that I spent a couple $100,000 building to do the analysis. And it cost, in addition to that, lots of grants. Each of these 5 sites had to have grants, and they found that result here. And that's a lot of highly educated people working on it. So fast forward to all of us. I took a student who just graduated undergrad without any training in computer science or genetics and said, hey, I just handed him the paper. I wasn't timing him at the time. I just said, hey, let's see if you can do this. And I handed him a paper and said, look at this. So in the intervening 12 years, there really hadn't been a lot of other studies on this condition of big size and diversity. And so he was able in 6 weeks to replicate this analysis. And I know this figure may not be one used to, but all those peaks represent genes. So you see a lot more peaks on the 2023 side in all of us than you see on the other side, and they're taller. So that means we're identifying more genetic signals. And he did it it cost him about $40, and it took him about 6 weeks, and this is one undergrad. And so if we can continue to turn this trend, how much more can we accelerate science across so many things? So now we have over 10,000 researchers using the platform, all being vetted in our cloud, safely doing this. There's over 10,000 projects. The acceleration of publications and discoveries are really picking up. We're seeking to really get diverse researchers in as well and reach broader here. And let me just go in here. We even have high school students working on this, and here's some of the examples here. We've been training and working with University of Utah with science, high school science teachers, and pairing up some really eager science high school students with mentors to work collectively. And you can see some of those papers, some of those science projects, one of which was in the Regeneron National Science Fair on the clonal hematopoiesis for risk of cancer there. This is what the data browser looks like, and so anyone can search this in an aggregate way. It gives you just raw counts, no way to get any idea who someone is. And so if you look for neurofibromatosis, it takes all the kind of data and different billing codes and doctors write things, and pulls them together, and you can see some of the counts there for the high-level neurofibromatosis and NF1, NF2. When we look at the data set, about 1,000 people 1,000 rare diseases are represented in the data set, and about 13% of all of us by one metric has a rare disease. If you look at NF1, NF2, and schwannomatosis, for diagnoses, not looking at the genetics, you're about 350 or so of those cases so far. I'm hopeful we're able to improve that. 70% of those have current genetic data, and those numbers will grow as we sequence more. And a number of them are from diverse backgrounds, including things, when we talk about that, I don't just talk about race and ethnicity, I should say that too. We're talking about people in rural locations, people that had educational attainment, and sexual gender minorities. We're really looking at a broad picture of different types of exposures. Here's just a sampling of some of the discoveries that have happened with all of us, and then highlighting some of the ongoing projects that are looking at NF conditions. My lab, I have a research lab as well, is also doing some studies looking at NF1, and we've done some stuff with NF2 as well, looking at rare variants and things that we can do there. One of the papers on the right that I want to highlight is that one that says APOL1. So this is a paper that it's a 40% of African Americans in this country that are on dialysis have an APOL1 variant, or two APOL1 variants actually, that is responsible for that excess risk and that need for that cause of kidney failure. And this paper looked at a mutation in that gene that actually balanced the other mutation by blocking the middle of the channel. And so what that does is it suggests a way that disease can be treated for this populations of people. It's very much like the CF story I told you before. So we understand the gene. We start looking more, and we can find a balancing way that suggests how that condition might be treated. And so maybe we'll have a treatment for something like that. And there's actually a drug that is in clinical trials now that is looking to do that very same thing. And these kinds of stories, as they come out, really give me excitement and hope of what's possible. Now I'm going to give you another personal story. I'll just tell you up front, this is my son, Aaron Denny, who's raising his hand. I'm going to invite him on stage in just a few minutes. And he was born with low muscle tone. He had meningitis at 3 weeks. I say that, it's a red herring for everything else that came, and we were wondering what was happening. We noticed, we had some physical therapy, developmental delay. We had a lot of early intervention at this point. We had a lot of involvement with a number of doctors at this point. Physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. We were seeing geneticists. We started to see a GI doctor in this time. We were seeing a neurologist. And we were looking at different genetic conditions, but none of them actually was the right one. And we were doing genetic tests, and none of them was actually the right one. At 6, he had an episode of vomiting that it wasn't the first time he vomited, but we started to realize, he's having multiple episodes of vomiting, and it's not looking like everyone else. No one else is sick. We don't know of any sick contacts, and maybe there's something else going on here. And so this continued, and it got to be weekly, where he would throw up for 24 or 48 hours, and it would be so atypical, and it wasn't anyone else in the family. And we kept going through all the traditional medications with our cluster of doctors, and we weren't able to figure out what was going on. And then around 7, actually, we were like, we've already had CT scan, all stuff, and my pediatrician, actually, or his pediatrician, said, why don't we do an MRI? And I was upset. I'm a physician, and I'm like, we're both like, I don't know, it's not going to show anything. And but sure, why not? We haven't done it yet. And it identified, as probably many of you know, these UBO, these unidentified bright objects that look like, are very characteristic of NF1. And so that led to us, considering and then doing genetic testing, confirming the diagnosis, and careful examination. We started to find, those just barely faint, just barely darkening cafe au lait spots that led us to also feel more comfortable with that as the diagnosis, the genetics being confirmatory. But still, we had a hard time figuring out how to control the CVS. And so we, like probably many people in this room, visited a number of doctors, drove around, in other states, and got extra help. And finally, around 9, started to really get on some medication regimens that could help. And then, they became more controlled. He's graduated out of his, his individual education plan. He, when he was in just incredible, where he didn't know his letters, to reading Harry Potter and all those kinds of wonderful things. And, and we'll tell you, we had all these doctors involved, many of them before we, many of them before we had a diagnosis. And, no one kind of pulled it together. And of course, the insurance company just didn't want to do whole genome sequencing. And so, it takes a village, and sometimes it's hard to figure this out. And you all know this. And so, where it is now is he's in advanced classes. He's doing wonderfully. He's really, he handled all that stuff so well, all the cavities and irritation of his mouth and vomiting, just like a pro. He just takes care of it. And many of you guys are really strong. And I'm just so amazed and encouraged by the story. So why don't you come on up, Aaron, and we're gonna, I'm gonna, so I gotta. Thank you. It's so fun to be able to come and do this with him, and I really appreciate the opportunity. I want to tell you just a little bit about where we're headed. We have been working hard building, right now it's 18 and over. what we enroll in the program. And we've been working hard at building a pediatric cohort program and the infrastructure for it. And we did that earliest alpha testing of 0 to 4, because you've got to obviously have different protocols for different ages. And we're looking forward to being able to do that in the future. We're obviously going to release new data. We do new surveys, really asking different kinds of questions we don't get in the medical record on occupation exposures, thinking about complementary health methods. And I don't know about you, but we've certainly looked at a lot of things because there's not a lot of data on NF in a lot of different conditions, and seeking to learn more there. And the other thing we want to do with our program is build out the ability to do these other studies on top of it. One of these that's launched about a year ago is called Nutrition for Precision Health. And the idea is to do a deep study embedded within all of us that lets us understand metabolism better. People with NF1 metabolize differently, and his basal metabolic rate is quite a bit higher than you would expect. And that's probably not just in NF. There's lots of variability here. That's an example of the kind of study we can do. We can also do studies in the future. I look forward to recontact of different kinds of things, such as genetic conditions, other sorts of clinical trials. So we really want to build this broadly. So with that, I just, this program's open to everyone. I would love to build the research base on NF1, NF2, schwannomatosis, and so many other rare conditions. I care about them all. I think I have a passion for what we could do in all of them together, and it really takes all of us to make a difference. So with that, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all.
Because we have a little announcement to make. You invested in the second company. I don't know if you saw it on LinkedIn or on all the other media channels that our amazing communication team has rolled out. But you invested in a first AI company. You hear a lot about AI these days and how AI can help drug discovery. Well, here is the man.
Thanks, Annette. I promise 3 minutes max, but Aaron, you need to know that it's Aaron, right? Aaron. I come from the same country of origin of the Godfather. And I have to say, we are not great with timing, and we talk a lot, so I might screw up just a little bit. Nice to meet you all. I am the head of NF at Healx, and we are a Cambridge-based company. The other Cambridge, the one a bit further away, in UK. And what we do is we develop treatments for rare diseases only, and we do it via technology and artificial intelligence. And NF is our most advanced program, specifically on NF1. And I have to say that one of the reasons for which is the most advanced in the company is exactly this. We have been partnered with a foundation as of day one of the journey. And I've been honored to lead this effort at Healx as of day one. And from the very first day, the foundation was there just to help us with everything to accelerate from data, preclinical models, key opinion leaders connection, everything to save years. And we are where we are now also for that. And now the foundation is also investing in Healx. And what that means is that we're going to work hard, and we're working very hard to launch a clinical trial in the US, hopefully, fingers crossed, in the upcoming months. And this is going to be a phase 2 trials for NF1. And this is just amazing. And I have a personal relationship with NF, and I know the disease also quite intimately. And I do know how much special is this community to me and in general, and how much you all do deserve treatments for all the forms and manifestations of NF. And I have to say that I see the future very, very bright, because there are the best researchers working on NF, there are the best clinicians working on NF, and compared to a few years ago, now there are more and more and more companies investing in NF. When you see the list of the number of companies that now are sponsoring, a few years ago was, I don't know, 0, then 1, then 3, then 5. I want to see 10.
There are 10 now.
I want to see,
Sorry,
okay, then I want to see 20. Okay.
Never good enough.
Never good enough. And why is that happening? Again, I just wanted to give a huge, huge shout out to Annette and the team for making this vision a reality, and essentially for making possible for a company to invest in NF. And the more companies we have, the better it is, because essentially we have multiple shots on goal. So I see really the future bright. All we have to do now is just to continue to work very hard and to work together, because that's the most important thing, because at the end of the day, we all have the same goal, which is to end NF. So thank you very much.
Just in closing, I really want to thank, first of all, Simone, who is like my brother. But I also really want to thank the board, Liz, and all the board members that are here. The board members, because the board meeting is organized here in San Antonio, because the board really felt strong about wanting to be at this celebration of the patients. I also really want to thank the staff, because don't celebrate me, we celebrate all of us. This is an incredible staff that is more than dedicated than you can think of, and people are all equally passionate. So thanks staff, thanks board, thanks everybody.
Okay, so I have to say that's all kind of a hard act to follow, particularly Erin, who was absolutely the star of the evening. So amazing, loved it. Thank you. I promise I have just a few things to say, and then we're going to let you guys get out of here and enjoy your evening, or continue to enjoy your evening. So if you don't know, I'm Kate. I work here with CTF. One of my kind of many hats I wear is getting to be a part of putting this incredible evening and an event together, which I'm grateful to be a part of. So that was all kind of a hard act to follow, but I'll just say that every year in planning the summit, previously the forum, I have the honor of working with an incredible team. So not only within CTF, with which Annette just did a great job acknowledging, but also we have a team of volunteers from outside of CTF who come in and join us to put this together. So I just want to acknowledge Dr. Devora Siegel, Dr. Manika Moodley, Krista Comfort, and Jessica Contreras, who were part of our NF Summit planning team for 2024. So thank you so much. And you will hear more from Dr. Moodley and Dr. Siegel in the coming days. And just some housekeeping kind of fun notes to let everybody know about is that, make sure you're using your Whova app if you're not yet. Anything you need to know, you should be able to find in there. We're running lots of fun contests, so definitely stay up to date on those. Lots of fun prizes to come. All of our sessions, as hopefully you've experienced tonight, will be captioned and also have Spanish interpretation. If you're having any issues with accessibility of any kind, please come and talk to me. We want everyone to feel welcome and included and have full access to this entire event. So I'll just end and say, I just want to say thank you. I know we've been sitting here for kind of a while, and I appreciate your attention this evening. But we know as a staff that this is, it's not easy to get to this event. It requires sacrifices for a lot of you, and we understand that. And honestly, my deepest hope is that those sacrifices are worth it, and that what you experience in the next day and a half just affirm and confirm your decision to make it possible and to be here. I know that this event, we bring in great speakers, we try to have the best content, we bring in lots of exciting things, but it's the people in this room choosing to be here together that make this event what it is. And so we are so grateful for your participation and your continued investment in this event. So I'm going to end with that and let everybody kind of continue to mingle and connect. I'll echo Matt's words of like, please don't hesitate, talk, engage. Anybody who's here is here for the same reason. And we want to be here together, and we want to be listening to each other and working hard together to end NF. So, thank you. So I'll release you and let you know that on your way out, you will find dessert outside. So don't forget that. Thank you, everybody.